Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rockin' Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score. Welcome to April. No April Fools. I was not fooled at all yesterday. Nothing happened, really. I don't think anyone really does the social media fools stuff anymore, other than a handful of people who think they're really, really funny. But we are here. We are in the post-spring. We're getting close to the spring transfer portal window opening back up. We're just twiddling our thumbs, waiting for news to happen about Missouri football. Nathan Hurst, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm fresh off a work event with an open bar, so had a couple pops and loosened up, ready to fire away.
Feeling juicy, feeling fine. He's ready to rip. All right. Well, let's not delay. Let's hear Two Beer Nathan tell us about Missouri football. Can't wait to hear about that. Actually, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about some schedules. We're going to talk about scheduling. We're going to talk about the dates Missouri is going to be playing opponents and those specific opponents, because what has happened is a very unique situation. When the SEC poached Texas and Oklahoma from the Big 12, that took the SEC to 16 teams. And there's a lot of projections about what that meant for scheduling. Do the divisions go away? Do they go to 8 games? Do they keep the 8 games? Do they go to 9 games? What does that do for the non-con? What does that do to SoCon Saturday? What does that do for all those buy-in games? There's a lot of hand-wringing about that. And the SEC said, no. The first year that Oklahoma and Texas are going to be in the league, we're going to keep 8-game schedule. Now, there was a conflict with Georgia and Texas, obviously, so that was no longer going to be a non-con, but an in-conference game. So there's some fudging that they had to do about that. But for the most part, no problemo. We'll just keep it the 8 games, kind of with the assumption that the following years would be the real scheduling, the quote real scheduling of what they were actually going to do. Lo and behold, Greg Sankey just says, hey, in 2025, we're just running it back. There are only 2 things that are going to change. Number 1, your non-conference games, because that's on the school. And number 2, we're just flipping the home and the away teams with the schedule that we put out for 2024. So, Nathan Hurst, you ranted and raved about this in typed form. Here is Two Beer Nathan Hurst to rant and rave at us in podcast form. Go ahead, man.
Well, I mean, really, more than anything, it's a punt. 2025 is a punt from 2024. They announced the original schedule, as you said, last year for 2024. Like, okay, they're in a transition period, trying to figure out, just trying to get everyone on the same boat, moving in the same direction, and do that for a year and then get going. They obviously still haven't figured out what that direction that they want to go is. Maybe they have, maybe they don't. Anyway, it's a punt. So best case scenario with the new schedule is it's kind of lame. It's just like kick the can down the road. Worst case scenario, it's the SEC trying to have its cake and eat it too, when there's been quite a lot in the news lately about the SEC and the Big Ten pushing really hard to expand the playoff even further. We haven't even played a playoff with 12 teams yet, but they're trying to push it to 14. Okay, whatever. But then they're trying to get all these concessions for automatic qualifiers for the SEC into the playoff. Guarantee us X number of spots, whether is that 3 spots, 2 spots, whatever. Trying to do that, and with the ostensible argument that the SEC is the best conference, it's the toughest conference. Every week is a grind. It's not fair to make us play this super hard schedule without it, and then make it possible that only one SEC team gets in. So trying to expand it on the fact that they're the toughest conference in the country, which the SEC is.
Yeah. So
they do that out of one side of their mouth. The other side of their mouth, they say, but because we're so tough, we can only play an 8-game conference schedule. We're going to limit the number of conference games we have because we're so tough. It's too hard, but we're too hard. So you also should make concessions for us, get more teams automatically in. Look, Mizzou's in the SEC, so whatever is good for the SEC is ultimately good for Mizzou. Not necessarily good for college football.
Yeah.
And automatic qualifiers beyond maybe the champion is not good for college football. It's really lame. It's not really good faith arguments to say both we're so tough you have to give us automatic spots, but we're also so tough that we can't play a 9-game schedule that all these other conferences are playing. The Big Ten's playing a 9-game schedule, the Big 12's playing a 9-game schedule. They're not as tough as the SEC. Sure. So it's got to be one or the other. It's got you could either play the 9 game schedule and then say we're doing this, so we should get our automatic spots. Play the 8 game schedule. Okay, we're making our a little easier on ourselves. We're gonna concede some of the spots. We're trying to have our cake and eat it too. It's frustrating. It's lame. Don't like it. As a fan, I would much rather see Mizzou play a 9th conference game against Ole Miss. Yes, they're really good. Against Texas, against whatever that night team would be, then looking at the non-con schedule, at Miami, Ohio. Do we need to play at Miami, Ohio ever? No. Or Louisiana at home. That's actually would be pretty fun. As G5 games go, that's a good game.
Yeah.
UMass at home. Don't need to see it. I don't need to see it next year. I don't need to see it in 2025. So I'm more than happy to part with any of those 3 games in exchange for, yes, a tougher game for sure. As a fan, I want to see fun games. I want to see tough games. UMass in Columbia, not a fun game. Right. Playing in, is it Oxford, Ohio? Not a fun game. No offense to the Red Hawks. That's not looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So I want to see fun games. I want to see other SEC teams play fun games. I don't want to see SoCon Saturday. I don't want to see Georgia play the biggest joke of a non-con in history of the world last year. I want to see really good teams play against other really good teams, and we get less of that. If I can't, I'm not good at math, but what is 9 times 13, 14, 16, 90 more games? That's too much. I'm not going to do math live on radio. I'm just going to embarrass myself.
9 times 16 is 144.
Yeah, it's not that many times. Put that in half. 80 more. I'd rather see 80 more SEC conference games. This math's probably still horrible. Please don't laugh at me.
Close 72.
For all those math nerds out there.
Yeah.
Way more. That's a lot. That's a lot more SEC games we're not getting to see. That we're seeing really lame non-con games instead, because those SEC teams are not going out and scheduling additional Power 5 opponents in exchange for that 9th game. That's not happening. Do they all already at the moment have to play one Power 5 team? Yes. They're not doing any more than that than they have to. And I'm a fan of college football. I love college football. I want to see more good, fun college football. And this isn't it.
Nathan Hurst. I replace BK with you, and I get yet another more hard games fanatic.
More good games. I want more good games.
More difficult games is what you're saying. You don't like Missouri to win because you want more entertaining games. You want the heart palpitations where you're like, are we going to win or not? And go through that, 12 times a year on Saturday. And Missouri's getting locked up in tough game after tough game. I don't want that. I like Missouri. I like my team to win. I like Missouri to win. Get that NFL brain and throw it away. Okay. The NFL is where you watch good football. Your college football team, you want your college football team to win. Give me Miami, Ohio. Yum, 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 yum. I'll take it all. Give me Buffalo. Just jam it down my gullet. I'll eat it happily. Give me Massachusetts. Not in Massachusetts, by the way, but give me UMass. I'll take that. Yeah, I want my team to win. I want my team to go to bowl games. And yes, the SEC is hard enough as it is. We don't need to make it harder by adding yet another top recruiting team, yet another excellent SP plus team, yet another 8, 9, 10 win team onto the schedule. I don't need that in my life. I want my team to rack up wins. And the most reliable, best way to do that is to play a cake easy out of conference schedule. 4 of them. Then enter the SEC with those 4 wins. Get yourself 2 or 3. You're already bowl eligible, and then see what happens from there. There is nothing more dangerous than a college football team with confidence. And a college football team with confidence is a college football team that's won a ton of games. So just throwing that out there. I also would like to see 9 games, but not for my team. I want to see Alabama and Texas A&M and Georgia. I want to see them lose more while my Missouri Tigers win more. So give me that schedule. That's what I want.
Right. And I get that. Yes. When Mizzou winning lots of games is great. Always wonderful when Mizzou to win every game that they play. The issue with it and everyone playing 4 cake non-conference games is everyone in the SEC is also winning those 4 non-con
usually
games.
Yeah,
right, rising. Except the problem is when everyone's winning those games, that devalues the currency of a win when everyone has those wins. Same with, we're talking about inflationary wins, if you will.
Okay.
When everyone is inflating the amount of wins on their schedule, the value of an individual win goes down. All
Sure.
right. So
Sure.
if everyone in the SEC is coming in at 6 wins, 7 wins, what is that an accomplishment to also get 6 or 7 wins? No. If everyone's playing an extra tough conference game, half those teams are also losing that extra conference game. So that
Sure.
makes the wins more. It makes the wins more valuable. It makes the losses less hurtful to your overall resume.
Yeah.
Especially in a playoff where they're now letting in more than just 4 teams. It's okay if it's okay to drop 2. It's in some cases it's okay to drop 3 games as long as you also have, I could see plenty of 9-3 teams getting in if they've got additional really good wins, and you get more chances to do that when you play 9 conference games.
But what if you had an expanded playoff and you already had 4 wins baked in, and all you got to do is not gack away half your conference games? All of a sudden, the SEC doesn't need the automatic qualifier because guess what? They've just set the road where they can, by natural scheduling, they could get it more teams in easier because they're playing 8 conference games and 4 non-con games. You can get there the same way. And we also don't really know what the committee is going to value as far as losses go. There's a good chance that they look at 3 losses and go, eh. But they're also people, and they also change like every year, so it's really tough to tell what's going to be. I will also say this, and this is like, I'm kind of being facetious in my other points, but this one's real. If we like college football as a sport, or just football in general as a sport, we need more guys to play it, because you need to field a team of 50, 60 in high school, 80, 90 in college. I think it cuts down to 53 in the NFL, but like, you need a lot of guys to be playing football in order to have football played at the highest level or across as many spectrums as you can. Those teams like Alabama and Georgia that hire Presbyterian or, Charlotte or, name your FCS team of choice, and get those body bag games, fund those athletic programs, fund those football teams, fund scholarships for kids to play the sport. That is what you need. The worst thing that could possibly happen is for football to lose interest because of the injuries, not mostly the injuries, but also like the fallout from CTE. And people start going, no, not for me. I'm going to go play lacrosse. I'm going to go play basketball or anything like that. And slowly the sports loses popularity. And then, I don't know what the fallout from that is, but you're getting to a point where football could potentially go the way of baseball or, God forbid, boxing or horse racing. Those sports used to be the most popular sports in America forever. And there's no law that says that it has to stay the same, because it doesn't stay the same. And because of the dangers of the sport of football, you just need to get as many guys out there to do that, so that if somebody chooses not to, you got 3, 4, 5 guys who can take his place. So I understand that SoCon Saturday and all the related FCS games are just not interesting at all. It is an opportunity for your backups to play, but it also keeps the sport going. And that's my biggest concern of the Big Ten and the SEC going off and doing their own thing and pulling teams away, is that they stop scheduling those games and that money stops going down. You need that to happen, and that would be my biggest concern. But it is not a pretty product. I will agree with that.
Yeah, it is certainly important in the entire college football ecosystem to play those games. And I'm not advocating to get rid of every bye game that you have on your schedule. Honestly, if you cut the non-con schedule from 4 games to 3, that's going to reduce, kind of back to economics principles here, that's going to reduce the number of those games, but it's also going to make scheduling each individual one of those games more valuable. Sure. And the amount of money that you're going to have to pay a UMass to come here is going to go up, because they're going to charge more, because they have this supply of, you could pay for us to come play at your school. You only get, there's only 3 opportunities to do that, for them to do that. So they're going to charge more per opportunity to go do that. I mean, it's actually going to put the onus on the smaller guys they're going to be able to charge a little more. I mean, are they going to make exactly the same amount of money? I don't know. I think it'll end up being fairly comparable, because you've got to fill your schedule up. You got to pay the teams, and those teams that are getting paid are going to, I think they'd be smart, and it probably different based on who's leading each team,
Sure.
to start charging a little bit more, especially. And you go to a 9-game conference schedule, you're going to really want the other 3 games to be easy. So you're going to really want to pay UMass. I don't know what we're paying them to come here. What, a couple $1 million?
Probably $1 million. Yeah,
whatever.
something like that.
Instead of paying them $2 million, you're going to pay them $3 million to get here. So that's going to offset any of the loss that UMass might get from not getting 4 bye games. If they're getting 4 bye games for $2 million, that's $8 million. Instead, they're charging $3 million per for 3. That's $9 million. They're actually coming off with a profit. So,
look at that.
I'm making money for the little guys as we speak. I mean, is it going to be quite that easy, quite that simple? No, of course not. But I think it has a chance to at least end up being comparable, out on the wash.
You showed up to Missouri Football Podcast and you got an Econ 101 lesson out of it. Who says we don't do things for you?
I don't even know how I'm sure I'm butchering all of these principles.
Man, who cares? We're not here to talk about Keynesian economics, but man, during the off season, don't rule it out. Don't rule it out. So let's get back to Missouri football because this schedule does impact Mizzou. Heading into this season, when the schedule was released, obviously you got to have a hot take about Missouri's schedule, about everybody's schedule. And you got to project what happened in the past 12 months, say that's always going to stay the same. And now we're going to look at the next couple of years. So that's what we did. That's what a lot of people did, especially around this space. And the consensus was, hey, Missouri's schedule is pretty easy. Hey, that's pretty great. And then they get to do it 2 years in a row. Wow, cool. So let's break that down because I'm actually curious if this is an easy schedule or not. And I'm not going to do this for every team because I'm not a podcaster for every SEC team, but we can at least do it for Mizzou and kind of put things into context here. So let's start off with the 2024 season. Probably should say what the schedule is in case you haven't heard it. Obviously, you all have access to the internet, but in case you're driving or you don't remember off the top of your head, let's run down what Missouri's schedule is in 2024 first, okay? They open up on Saturday, August 31st. It's potential for a Thursday, but, we'll see. With Murray State. Again, this podcast has a strong stance that Murray is not a state, but we will continue to refer to them as such until those blasphemers change their name. So we got Murray State Racers August 31st. Next week, Missouri plays Buffalo for the first time since 2008. That was back when Chase Daniel and Sean Weatherspoon were still on the team. And Turner Gill was the coach of Buffalo. So long time ago. They follow that up Saturday, September 14th. Boston College comes to Mizzou. We get an opportunity to avenge that weird, disgusting overtime loss in Boston a couple of years ago. Then Missouri closes out the first 4 weeks with Vanderbilt coming to Mizzou. The bye week is the next week. That's followed up with a trip to Texas A&M, which is currently 25th, I think is what it is. They go to UMass because, again, what the hell? That's Amherst, Massachusetts. That's on October 12th. They then turn around and host Auburn for homecoming. They then go to Alabama on October 26th, then a bye week. Then your last four, Oklahoma at home. That's the biggie. Then you go to the other bad Columbia in South Carolina. Then you go to Mississippi State. And Missouri has a chance to beat Mississippi State for the first time in school history at that moment. And then, of course, you close it out with Arkansas, which is currently scheduled for November 30th. It's going to be on Black Friday. So that is the schedule for 2024. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, UMass, Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas. Hurst, easy question. Is this schedule hard? Is it easy? Or is it just okay?
It's relative. The answer is it's entirely relative. Is this a schedule hard for the Big 12? Yes. If you're a Big 12 team and you look at the schedule, you're feeling a little nervous. Is this schedule hard for an SEC team? The answer is no. This is about as easy a schedule as you can get when you combine all 16 SEC teams, throw them into a mixer, pull out lottery balls. This is about as good as you're going to get. We get Vanderbilt. Thank God. It seems like maybe that could very well be one of our regular opponents down the road. We'll see if they keep it that way. But it kind of initial themes like that might be the case. You get Vanderbilt, great. You get South Carolina. We're playing them in November. There's a good chance that they don't have a head coach at that point. You're playing on the road against Mississippi State. Brand new coach. He's walking into a mess. And that's the end of the year. So who knows how motivated they're going to be at the end of the year. Hard to say. You get Arkansas, great chance they don't have a coach. So those are your last three games. Boom, boom, boom. To finish it out, it's tougher in the meat of the schedule. I mean, you got Oklahoma and Alabama, and then Oklahoma back to back with a bye week in between there. Mm-hmm. So that's tough. I mean, that's as tough 2-week stretches you're going to find anywhere in the country. But that's it. I mean, that's the gauntlet right there. The rest of it, Auburn, they're who knows? A&M's going to be fine, but they're middle of the pack, to be honest. So in the SEC, this is an easy schedule. Is it an easy schedule in college football? No. I mean, of the 130 teams, is it probably still the 30th to 40th toughest schedule in the country? But in the SEC, it's probably the 15th or the 16th. So it's all relative.
It is. And I think the big point is, like, it could have been a lot worse from your SEC opponents. I agree with that. You highlighted some of these things, unless we're not even talking about non-con. Buffalo and Boston College are also featuring brand new coaches in their first year walking into messes. UMass is, since they made the jump to FBS, is consistently one of the worst FBS teams on the planet. Tough to recruit to Amherst, Massachusetts. Don't know if you heard. I don't know if you remember Don Brown, the old defensive coordinator at Michigan. He's the head coach. So that's where they're at. He's got a bunch of old dudes that are working with him, so it's tough. So from the SEC standpoint, though, you highlighted a couple of situations where people could be missing coaches, and you know what? Yeah, absolutely. Can't read the future, but is it a possibility? Yeah, you bet. Here's what I was looking at earlier today. There's things that you can look at when you're analyzing a team heading into a season. That's how they do, what's their consistency in SP plus, which I know everyone's got their own takes on what that is, but it's a quality metric, and you can look at it over 5 years to give you a pretty good idea of what a team should be on average. You have recruiting, 5-year recruiting. Obviously, transfer portal has turned that on its head a little bit, but still at its core, the best way to build a team is to do it through the high school ranks, develop them, and have them stay with your program. Obviously, that doesn't happen anymore, but until we have holistic transfer portal rankings, I'm going to go off of 5-year high school recruiting. And then after that, it's returning production, right? How much of last year's team are you bringing back this year? Because a lot of that tells you how much they could improve or regress based off of how much they're bringing back. Okay, so let's talk about recruiting. Again, the SEC teams: Vanderbilt, A&M, Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas. In A&M, Auburn, Alabama, and Oklahoma, you are playing 4 of the top 6 recruiters in the SEC. Okay, Texas is up there. Obviously, Georgia is up there. But A&M, Auburn, they throw money at every recruit you can possibly think of now that it's legal. And then Alabama and Oklahoma do the same thing, but they also have the history to back it up, right? So that's rough. On any given year, they're probably going to have a roster that's more talented than Missouri's, just through the high school ranks. That's all I'm talking about. Does that mean anything when you actually play ball? No. Development, tactics, all that stuff, that still matters, but you're probably walking up against 4 rosters that are better than you. Now, let's talk about SP plus, right? And that's a quality metric from Bill C. If you look at 5-year SP plus average, the best team over the past 5 years is Georgia. Missouri misses them. Second best, Alabama. Uh-oh. Now, that's a new coach, but Alabama is number 1. Number 2. Number 3 is Oklahoma. So right off the bat, you're playing 2 of the top 3 SP plus teams in the SEC, not only in the nation. And you get one of them. Well, you get both of them at home, but still.
Alabama's on the road.
I thought Alabama was on the road in 25.
No, we're flipped. So
all right, whatever.
We're in Tuscaloosa this year, and Oklahoma is.
All right, so 1-1. All right, A&M is number 5 in the SEC in SP plus over the past 5 years. And think about how up and down they've been. They're still really talented. Now Auburn is basically a Missouri clone, kind of right there with them. Really, the clutch factor is that you get 4 of the bottom 4 SEC teams as far as SP plus. That's Mississippi State at 13, South Carolina at 14, Arkansas at 15, and Vanderbilt at 16. That is really it. You get the 4 worst performing teams of the past 5 years. For reference point, Missouri is 12th, so they're right above, but still counts. Still better. They're sitting at 7.9. So that's from SP plus. Now let's look at returning production. A&M returns 72% of last year's roster. What does that mean? Again, not a whole lot, since they too have a new head coach in Mike Elko, but he is a freaking football coach, and there's still a bunch of talent on that roster that was recruited there. They're probably going to be pretty good. Outside of that, though, returning production, Missouri is actually third. They're 31st in the nation, but third in the SEC at 68%. You have Auburn and South Carolina, both they are 50th and 59th in the country, so 6th and 7th in the SEC. Oklahoma only returns 62% of their roster. Vanderbilt returns 60%. And then Arkansas, Alabama, and Mississippi State are all below 45%. So to recap, yes, you're playing the top, four of the best recruiting teams in the country. Yes, you play two of the top three over the past 5 years in the SEC and three of the top five, but two of those have new coaches. And Alabama's got a new coach, but they also lose a ton of production, as does Arkansas, as does Mississippi State. Really, the danger zone is going to be A&M and Oklahoma, which we already circled those as danger zones anyway. Alabama's tough no matter what. Auburn's a chaos team. But I really do think, based off of what it could have been, the fact that you get the four worst teams of the past 5 years and some of the worst recruiters too, and three of the bottom as far as returning production, it's tough to ask for any more than that, frankly.
Yeah, where we really have an advantage over a lot of the other schedules in the SEC this year and next year we'll see it. It depends on a lot how these new coaches build and how fast they build. We miss out on the meaty middle of the conference. That's really what makes the SEC so tough, right? So we've got the two really good teams, Alabama and Oklahoma, up at the top. It's impossible to have any SEC schedule and not get two elite teams. That's just it's good. But what we miss is the Tennessees, we miss the Ole Misses, the Kentuckys, those teams right in the middle that are good. They're going to be well coached. They're going to show up. They're going to play hard. And they're going to be really tough to beat, especially if you're playing them on the road. We miss those guys. We get the bottom of the barrel. Either programs with brand new coaches that are already bad, or coaches that are on the way out and probably not going to be around. If not in the middle of the season, then by the end of the season. So that's the advantage that we have. Now, I mean, you mentioned the bottom four. That's 4 wins right there.
Should be.
If we're really considering that we're hoping this to be a playoff contending team, you got to win more than those 4 games plus the 4 games at the the non-con, which we're kind of hopefully all marking off as wins at this point. So that's 8. You got to find 2 more wins on there. But that's where the meaty, missing out on that meaty middle is going to help. You got to win 2 of the 4: A&M, Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma. Those are 2 of those 4. You get 2 of them at home, 2 of them on the road. Does it really matter which of the 2 you win and which you lose? No. I think if you finish 10-2 in the SEC, you're going to get in the playoffs this year. But you got to find 2 wins out of those 4, and that's a lot easier to do that than if you're playing Auburn instead of playing Tennessee or Georgia, or you're playing Texas A&M, who's going to be fine. They're going to be good. They're going to be good playing on the road. You're going to do playing them on the road instead of at Athens or in Lexington. So that's the advantage that this schedule has over a Florida who just got absolutely screwed. Even Tennessee's got a really tough schedule. So that this is as good as you're going to get.
And to your point, you said this should be a playoff team, and I agree. Not only does most of the offense return, not only do you have some key additions to the defense that we're all excited about, that we think that in theory should be able to pick up where they left off, even the question at DC, this team is motivated to make the playoff. Ennis Rakestraw, in his preparation for the NFL draft and everything, tweeted out, if I knew this was going to be the schedule, I would have come back. That's dangerous that the players are going, oh, this is going to be cake, because you don't want that. You don't want, last year's syndrome overtaking the team in the current year thinking, oh, we'll just show up and win. But this is a team that, has got Brady Cook coming back. It's got Luther Burden coming back. Theo Weiss coming back. Everybody on offense pretty much, minus the running backs. Talented defense and a schedule that can get them there. Man, yeah. If you can't go into this season as a player amped up knowing if we take care of business, we are in the playoff, then I don't know. Then you're not a competitor, right? That you just don't have it. And Eli Drinkwitz even said it at the podium in the Cotton Bowl. I sat there and I watched him, and he said, next year's going to be the disease of me. We got to fight back the disease of me, where we go, oh, no, we're good. We won this thing. We're good. Like, he knew it the second he grabbed that trophy. He knew it. So I think the coaches are going to be in a good spot. It's just, can the players do it too? I like to think there's enough experienced old guys on there to keep everybody, in check and pulling forward. But, the runway is there, and they got to take it. And if they don't, it's going to be a huge disappointment. So I don't know, man. Are you nervous about this year? Are you anxious, nervous, scared? What do you think?
Not yet. When ask me again in mid-July, and I'll probably have a different answer to that question. But I think we're still a little too far out to feel. I mean, I'm excited. At this point, I'm excited. I'm ready. I'm anxious to get it started so we can see. But looking at games like home game at Auburn, that's a game that's like a have to win that game kind of game. But I've been a Mizzou fan for a while, and a lot of those games where it's a have to win, we should win, and we don't win. So that's what starts, just that pessimistic Mizzou fan in me kind of starts creeping out, trying to push that guy down at least until July, as far as I can, as far as I can go. But I mean, it's set up. Everything is on the table. For them on the table to go 10-2. I mean, there's a ceiling. There's a ceiling there. The ceiling is 12-0. I mean, I don't want to get too ahead of my skis there, but it is not outlandish to say 12-0 is on the table. Am I predicting 12-0? No, by no means. But it's on the table. You have the toughest two games you got at Alabama, brand new coach. Are they going to be good? Yeah. I mean, they're going to be good. You got Oklahoma at home. I mean, Alabama, huge turnover. They do have some guys back. They got the quarterback back. New system that they're going to have to learn. They're going to be good. We know they're going to be good. But is that an unwinnable game? No, it's not unwinnable. Not for the team that Mizzou has coming back. Oklahoma in Columbia, that's at home. The last time Oklahoma was here, we beat them, and it was probably a better team. I mean, certainly we had a different team too. Yeah. But it was number one team, ranked number one in the country at the time that they came in here. So, are they going to be good? Yes, they're going to be good. But they've got, a freshman quarterback starting for them. He's talented, but he has no experience. So those are the toughest two games. They are winnable.
Yeah.
Your next two tough games: Auburn at home. That's a should win. Nothing's a should win for Mizzou, but that's a should win. At Texas A&M, that's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a very tough game, tough environment. Is once again new coach, a lot of turnover there in terms of it's on offense. Like, what are they going to be like offensively? Entirely new system. He's a good coach. So I think they'll be good. I mean, honestly, I think that actually might be the second toughest game of the season outside of Oklahoma. As I'm talking it out loud, but I mean, those are the four games you're looking at. The rest, you just take care of business. You take care of business like we have the last several years against South Carolina. You take care of business against a Mississippi State program that has seen better days, and maybe they will again in the future, but not. I don't think that's going to be this year. Take care of business against Arkansas at home. We're back out at home. Yeah. We'll see if their head coach is still there or not. We might have the privilege of getting two coaches fired, walking off the field back to back. That would be really
the fun. Missouri special, baby. Yeah, that
would be really fun to have Arkansas's last two coaches fired before the press conference on the way back. So Beautiful. We can dream, we can hope. Yeah. It's there. It's right there in front of us. Drinkwitz, even on the first press conference he did in the spring back in February, that was his number one message that he hyped over and over and over again. Is last year's accomplishments to have no bearing on this year's results, and so he's aware of it. I mean, I would hope he is. That's his job to be aware of that. But the challenge will be for him and his staff and the leaders on the team to communicate that message every day to everyone else that's on that team. That it's there. We can do it. We've proven that we can do it, but we still have to do it, and we haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that.
You need to make practices hell. Is what you need to do. Just make them so miserable, and hope that you don't chase anybody off, but that's kind of what you have to do. Just kind of looking at this again. Yeah, if you say the toughest game, the hardest game on the schedule, it's probably at Alabama. Next would be at Texas A&M, and then Oklahoma at home. The toughest stretch of games. Because again, the quirky thing about a leap year is that you get a later start to Labor Day, so that the schedules, college football season is 1 week longer. So you get the opportunity for 2 bye weeks, which usually doesn't happen. So again, the last time this happened was 2019. We don't have to talk about that season, but you get 4 games off, 4 games off, 4 games. Get a nice little quarter system going right there, right? So the toughest stretch, well, it's not going to be the opening. You could probably say at A&M, at UMass, Auburn at home, at Alabama. That's a tough one. I think the sneaky trap part is that last part where you get Oklahoma at home, and let's just say you come off an emotional last-second win over your most hated rival that you haven't played, in 12 years, whatever it is, and then you turn around and go to South Carolina, and then you go to Mississippi State. And if you're sitting there and you're like, hey, we just got through the meat of the schedule. All we got to do is just win these road games. Famous last words of a college football team. All you got to do is win your road games, regardless of opponent. Regardless of opponent. I don't care where South Carolina or Mississippi State are going to be at that time. Not easy. And then after that, you got 5 days off, and bam, it's Arkansas, which, again, regardless of quality, not an easy ask for a bunch of college kids to do. That back 4 games is going to be tough, sneaky tough. And if you're looking for a thing that knocks Mizzou out, if we assume that they take care of business, that would be the stretch that does it. So, and of course it's at the very end. So if you're ranked, tumble down you go. It's just, yeah, I can't help but be, a Missouri fan who thinks that they're going to gack it away somehow. Even if I think that this team is incredibly good and could absolutely reel off 10-2. I'm going to be nervous until they play it. Frankly, that's just where I am. And that's the end of me talking about 2025. You want to look at 2025 real quick? Because there's a fun little gem in there. Now you lose Brady Cook, you lose Luther, you lose Theo. You lose. Do we lose any offensive? Well, you lose your running backs again, so that's going to be interesting. Or at least the 2 that you brought in this year. Here's the thing about 2025, though. Who's that? I see that on my schedule there. That is the Kansas Jayhawks. Ugh. Now you got to go at Miami, and you got Louisiana, and you got UMass again. But, man, you get to play Kansas again for the first time, and again, like 14 years at that point. It's impossible to judge quality of this, right? Because we haven't even figured out this season yet. But knowing what we know and looking at Kansas, Miami, Louisiana, UMass, I mean, I'm not going to pencil in 4-0 right now, but that seems like a very another manageable non-con, don't you think?
Yeah, and Kansas is in Columbia, which is great. Usually when it seems like every time we sign these deals for home and homes with not Power 5 teams, we always on the road first. But that's not the case this time, so that's great. We get first game of the season, Kansas in Columbia. Most likely they'll have a new quarterback. Jalen Daniels, I believe, he probably have another year of eligibility. Yeah. But there was some question if he was even going to come back in 2024. He is coming back, but I would be, barring injury for him, I'd be very surprised if he didn't move on after next year. So
probably have a new coach too.
Yeah, I mean, Leipold was kind of in a hot name this year. They'll probably be pretty good next year, at least for Kansas. Kansas level good, and so he will be a hot name once again. Yeah. So they're not going to be they're not 2014, 2015 abomination Kansas anymore. He's done a great job to get them back to at least competency. So that'll be a good game. The other 3, at Miami of Ohio, they're going to be super hyped for that. Miami has not good, and they haven't been good for a while. So this isn't like going to Toledo. We did 2014. That was actually a fairly challenging game. We ended up winning comfortably at the end, but it was not a just gimme game. Yeah. So they'll be hyped up for it, but nothing to worry about. Louisiana, good program, good fun, G5 game. They haven't been as good since Napier left. Who knows? Maybe Napier will be back there by that point. Yeah,
oh, jeez.
And then UMass is just not.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to get married in the fall of 25, October 18th is the perfect weekend to do it.
Agree. Yeah. Man, I think Miami's either played in or won the MAC, but it's the MAC, and like everyone jumps up one year and then falls down the next. So like it's tough to tell. But Chuck Martin's been there for like 15 years at this point. He's Notre Dame's old offensive coordinator. He can't get a job anywhere else. So yeah, I mean, going on the road is never easy, but Michael DeSamoros, Louisiana, okay, I'm fine with that. UMass, fine with that. Really, it's Kansas. That's the gem. But then everything flips. Like I said, now you're at Arkansas. Now you're at Auburn. Alabama's at home. Mississippi State's at home. South Carolina's at home. A&M's at home. You go to Norman, Oklahoma, which always smells like cow poop. Don't get at me. And then, of course, you have to go to Vanderbilt, which I don't want to say who cares because Missouri's lost there before, but like it's Vanderbilt. So, we're not going to project anything on there, but like it's going to be a Missouri team that could quite possibly be rebuilding, especially on offense. Maybe it'll be one of those kind of 2014 years where the defense carries an offense that's like sputtering and trying to figure out who they are. Maybe Sam Horn has an elbow again and he's a quarterback, or maybe Aiden Glover's the guy, or hey, maybe Matt Zoller's the kid who's going to be committing the upcoming this week. Maybe he's the guy. So there's so many variables, you have no idea. But it's going to be fun to play Kansas again. Like, obviously I want them to die a horrible death, but it's really nice to play them in sports. That's always fun, especially the one that we're good at, right? So,
and as far as looking at projecting ahead and possible to do, we don't know half these teams who their coach is going to be. I mean, South Carolina, as we mentioned, Arkansas, Vanderbilt even easily could have a new coach in a couple more years. I mean, Hugh Freeze is always one text message away from losing his job again. So it's very difficult to project out in the era of the transfer portal 2 years from now. I mean, we know Alabama is going to be good. Oklahoma is going to be good playing. So those games are going to be tough. Texas A&M is going to have a lot of money. So there's probably going to be good. But I mean, I think looking at it, if we apply what we know for this year for 2025, this is really just the exact same thing. We have a really tough road game at Oklahoma, really tough home game, Alabama at home, some other, challenging games at Auburn, A&M at home, then kind of the bottom of the conference at that point too. So it looks like we've set up as good as we can for the next 2 years. The turnaround is come 2026, unless they completely reshuffle the deck again, an entirely new system, we're probably looking at a lot harder schedule in 26.
Probably.
Won't play Alabama, won't play Oklahoma. Well, we actually probably will play Oklahoma, but we'll trade Alabama for Georgia, and we'll trade Mississippi State for Ole Miss, and we'll trade
LSU or something like that.
Yeah, LSU. Yeah. We'll trade Auburn for LSU, and so you're only getting tougher.
Yeah. So yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. It's going to be an interesting 2 years, and I like I said, I like my team to win, but there's just so much uncertainty about what the sport is even going to be. Regarding the playoff, regarding rosters, regarding super conferences. Like there's just there's too much movement. So we're going to enjoy this one, and we're going to maybe enjoy the next one. Because that's a 12-team playoff, and there's things that we still kind of understand at this point, so that's what we're going to do. But hey, we had a good conversation about scheduling. I wanted to drop two other things on here of note. Number one, Missouri hired an offensive analyst named Sean Gleason. Does that mean anything to you? No, probably not. Sean Gleason was Princeton's offensive coordinator for a couple of years, and that's kind of where he became a hot name. Mike Gundy hired him to coach offense at Oklahoma State. He did fine. And then Gleason heard Mama's calling home. New Jersey native went back to Rutgers to try and revive their offense, and he did exactly what happens when you try to play offense at Rutgers and you suck. So he is out of a job and needed something. So Eli Drinkwitz offered to bring him on as an analyst. Again, what does this mean? Probably not a lot. I can tell you that he is a very creative offensive mind. He did very well at Princeton. He's experienced. If this is a guy who moves up into a position coach or like possible coordinator long term, that's probably not going to happen because coaches are too much on the move. But it's better than having, let's say like a retread Rams coach on your staff. I'll take this one every day of the week. So that's note number one. Note number two, as previously mentioned, there's a four-star quarterback that's going to be committing on, was it April 4th? Is that Thursday?
Thursday.
Okay.
We're recording this on Tuesday, so
yes.
By the time you're listening to this, you may already have an announcement.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But he's down to Penn State, Georgia, and Missouri. Zollers, right? Matt Zollers. That's how you say his last name?
Yeah.
Zollers.
Yeah.
Okay. Four-star out of Pennsylvania. So, the hometown school is Penn State. Usually don't get a lot of Pennsylvania kids, like highly rated Pennsylvania kids, out of Penn State's grasp, but the fact that Mizzou is feeling pretty good about it. Of course, Georgia gets the last visit, and Penn State is the hometown poll. So I don't know. How are we feeling, Hurst? How should I feel about this commitment?
I mean, I think I've got a kind of a little bit of optimism based on what I've read. It seems like we're in pretty good shape. That doesn't mean a whole lot. His last visit was to Georgia. I think it was either over this past weekend or like even just Monday. So very recent. Mm-hmm. The one thing we have going for us there is Georgia just got a 5-star commitment for the class of 26. So a year younger than Zollers. But he's like that commitment's the top quarterback in that class as of now, 2 years out. So that, is he going to want to go in there and compete? Maybe so. But it sounds like we've got a pretty decent chance. I mean, it's if we're not first, we'll be second in that race. I think we're ahead of the other two in his Final Four is Pitt and Penn State. And it kind of sounds like we're ahead of them. It's kind of us in Georgia. So hopefully they showed him some Harold Brantley highlight tape and said, "Hey, come down here and be the next Pennsylvania star at Mizzou."
Yeah,
I think he's the last one I can remember from Pennsylvania that he ran a sick fake punt against Ole Miss in 2011. That's my Harold Brantley highlight of my initial memory. So that'd be cool to develop that hot Pennsylvania to Mizzou pipeline. Or if not, at least if we get him, is a 4-star quarterback. 247 has him as the 6th quarterback in the class, best quarterback in the class. They have him as the 102nd overall recruit. So very highly touted. I think in the composite he's a little lower because the Rivals has him a little bit lower. So I think I think in the composite he's like the 10th best quarterback in the class. in the top 150 though in terms of overall recruits. So he very high up there. Similar, if not a little higher pedigree than Sam Horn had when he committed. So it'd be great. We don't have any commitments yet. Well, you got to start with one. It'd be great if that first one is a quarterback. If not, I'm sure we'll move on to the next option. Yeah. But it would be a good one to have. I was kind of expecting to get a tight end commitment here soon because that's the rule. You can't start a class unless we get a tight end to commit first. So maybe Drinkwitz will call him up and tell him, no, we won't take your commitment yet because we've got to get that tight end first. So I'm being tongue in cheek, of course. Or maybe they force him to switch positions to play tight end at least until we get someone else.
Look, rules are rules, man. We don't make them, we just abide by them. And Eli Drinkwitz says every recruiting class starts with a tight end. So that's what we're gonna do. Harold Brantley, the Hershey Hammer. I miss that guy a lot. Very sad that he didn't really get to finish his career with Mizzou, but thanks for the memories, man. He was a lot of fun. He was a lot of fun on the inside. All right. That's the show. That's the show for today. I can't believe it. We did it, but we did. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. Leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter at Nate G. Edwards. He's at First to Hurst. And of course, you can follow the Rock M flagship at Rock M Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rock M Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, M-I-Z.
Z-O-U.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.